Hi, it's Catherine, that crazy sugar-free woman again, haranguing you about getting off and staying off of sugar now more than ever. I want to start with a question from one of my Sugar Freedom readers. Is transitioning from the 3-day sugar strike to traditional sugar freedom? The purpose of the 3-day sugar strike is it is a ketogenic approach, 20 grams of sugar or less per day. It's to help you get your appetite under good management. So you're not going to be eating fruit or the cheeses or the nuts, which often are added back on sugar freedom. So 3 day sugar strike is ketogenic. It's protein, eggs, little bit of heavy cream, and then vegetables that grow above the ground. Then we can transition into traditional sugar freedom, which is going to allow you usually 2 servings of above ground vegetables, a big green salad, and maybe 1 serving of low sugar fruit. So there it is in a nutshell, answering that question, transitioning to sugar freedom. However, when we start to get off of sugar, and this is the way I did it, is I had to pull all of the sugar and most of the glucose out of my eating plan in order to manage my appetite, because it is sugar and glucose level for me, which was raising my appetite to a point where I couldn't control it and I was eating out of control. Anyway, that's the point on that. We lower sugar, we lower glucose, we get rid of the grains and the processed vegetable oils to manage appetite, but we also do it for good health, to manage inflammation, and to manage, prevent, or heal insulin resistance. Now, of course, when I say in terms of healing, I am a lay person. I used to be a certified personal trainer, certified fitness nutrition specialist, but I have gone ahead and let the certifications go, primarily because what I really love is acting and singing and dancing and other things. But the other point is that I am here to demonstrate how to quit sugar and live sugar-free for the rest of your life. I'm here to make personal demonstrations and inspiration if I can, not to make professional recommendation. I hope that makes sense. There are all kinds of professional recommendations that you can find. Lots of medical doctors, Dr. Paul Saladino, Dr. Sean Baker, lots of MDs who are telling people, hey, Dr. Robert Lustig, it's time to go ahead and get off of sugar. Go with a low carbohydrate strategy, especially if, like me, you've been obese and have had an out of control appetite. And it's been pretty wonderful. It's been 12 years since I permanently overcame obesity, and I'm 56 years old now and feeling really, really good. But feeling good, getting ready to come out of COVID quarantine, get back into the world, and get back into work. For example, my ukulele teacher is now opening his studio for 1 person at a time, and it is likely that tomorrow I am going to go to class and I am going to wear a mask. So what everybody is talking about is it safe to go back? Should we go back? Is there too much restriction coming on from the government? But what I would like to suggest is that we really look at the science, look at what's going on, who is getting sick, who is staying well, and seeing if you can figure out a way to make a good choice for yourself. Certainly, as the law says, you can start to go out into the world. I mean, we've continued to grocery shop. I go grocery shopping wearing a mask, and I go to the drugstore, but other than that, keeping it just to those essential needs. However, now we have to make that decision. It is likely, my day job is I do work retail for TJ Maxx, and the time is probably coming when we are going to be called back in. They are going to, what I have heard is we're going to have, we're going to have masks, we'll have gloves if we need them, plenty of sanitation, they're going to put up barriers, they're going to do social distancing. But everybody is going to have to make the decision of, are we going to go back or are we going to continue to shelter in place? So the question is, are you one of the people who is metabolically at risk for serious complications from COVID-19? And as a lay person, but somebody who's really curious, getting ready to go back into the world, I want to know the answer. So here's something that I saw. Oh my goodness. Blood clots are mysteriously tied to many coronavirus problems. Well, the truth is, it isn't all that mysterious, because if we go into the different sources of scientific studies and materials, what we discover is that there is a connection between insulin resistance, diabetes, blood glucose, and the blood clots. So it is all connected. The analysis shows that what's happening is that if you've got impaired blood glucose, if you've got hyperinsulinemia, and let me explain the connection there. When blood glucose is elevated, insulin is what gets that glucose out of the bloodstream and either uses it for energy or stores it. If your glucose is elevated, then your insulin is elevated, and it is the hyperinsulinemia that very often opens the door to these inflammatory conditions that make us more susceptible. It's so difficult right now as a regular person who has given up sugar and grains and processed vegetable oils to lose weight. Now, in my never to be humble personal opinion, now it's literally becoming an issue of life and death, not just in terms of longevity, that you don't want diabetes or cancer or dealing with obesities and ruining your joints, but now it's literally a question of if you're in a diabetic state or if you're in a hyperinsulinemic state, what the science is showing me that I'm seeing from my studies is it's actually putting you more at risk of having serious complications from this infection. And so now we have to make these decisions on, it really is, it is life or death, go out or stay home. Because not only that, if you need to go out and make a living, which many of us do, and then the other question is we have to deal with our mental health, our emotional health, which we know is improved and inspired by getting out and doing the things that we love. It is time to make that decision about, are we healthy enough to go out and live in the world? And I do believe from 12 years of experience and also from studying the science is that if we can get our metabolic health under control, then it is likely that we may be able to get back to having our lives to a certain extent. What are some practical things that you can do to find out whether you're metabolically healthy? Well, the simplest thing is to just get yourself a blood glucose monitor. They are available at any pharmacy, and you can go to the pharmacy. That is essential. You can go to the drugstore and just get yourself a blood glucose monitor and test your fasting glucose. Get up in the morning, test your blood glucose to see if you're in a healthy range. I'll share something with you. This really kind of freaked me out. So my husband and I have had some symptoms, and we're doing well, we're doing fine now, but we started to shelter in place, I think, on March the 15th. And I got sick about a week into that. I had nausea, vomiting. I didn't really have the cough or trouble breathing, but I did have, one of the things that was really weird is that I started to have the hot flashes. And I've been through menopause, but that hot flashes are one of the symptoms, and actually my husband started to have them, which is, as a guy, not quite as likely for him. I had the temperature, not really high, but I did have a temperature. But what totally shocked me was a high level of increase in my fasting blood glucose. One of the reasons that I quit sugar way back in 2008 is that my blood glucose level was pre-diabetic in the mornings. I had dealt with pregnancy-induced hypertension during my pregnancy, which then opens the door to developing diabetes type 2 down the road. This is the statistical fact of having PIH and also having gestational diabetes. So I had my eye on that, and back in 2008, my son was 7 years old, and I started to see that my morning blood glucose was getting into the pre-diabetic range. And this is where I really committed to getting rid of sugar, going keto, losing the weight. Now, during this lockdown, for the first time in 12 years, I tested my blood glucose, and guess what? Pre-diabetic level in the morning. Freaked me out. Really tightened up my eating, and now everything is back to normal. But it turns out the hot flashes, but also elevated blood glucose is another symptom, another sign that someone is dealing with or has dealt with COVID-19. So these are the things that are coming up. And I know, making this glucose-sugar connection, the connection is between metabolic disorders, being metabolically unhealthy, and eating the sugar, the grains, and the processed vegetable oils. And as a layperson, if I can demonstrate the benefits of getting rid of those foods, maybe I can do my part. There is something else that I am doing to see that I am ready to go out into the world. Checking my temperature, checking my blood glucose level, but I have a pulse oximeter that I can wear on my finger. I am also checking my blood oxygenation level, because one of my concerns is we've been doing major amounts of yard work and I've been feeling, extreme fatigue after, working, hauling brush and weed whacking and all of these things. And of course I'm thinking, normally I'm like an Energizer bunny. So I'm like, oh my goodness, what's going on? I better check my oxygen level. Well, I checked it. 98%. I am well oxygenated. But that is something that you can really do if you're concerned about how healthy you are. Checking blood sugar, your temperature, and also you can get a pulse oximeter. You can download an app on your phone, put that pulse oximeter on, and find out what your blood oxygen level is, which I think can be very reassuring in terms of knowing how you're doing for your own health. And then of course, finally, keep that waistline. First of all, get it under 35, and then get it less to 50% of your height. And then finally, if you can, get it within 2 inches of where it was when you first became a grown person. So, 18, 21. Thank you for watching and listening. Watch more videos on how to get off of sugar, because now more than ever, it is so important to get metabolically healthy, ditch the sugar. And you can go keto, you can go sugar-free, you can even go carnivore. What I have done is when I really need to get my weight and my appetite under control, I go ahead and I go carnivore, get things stabilized, and then I add back a few above ground vegetables, which now I'm growing myself. We've got lettuce in, we've got radishes in, we've got all kinds of goody things. We've got squash, so we're growing these vegetables ourselves and can't wait for those cherry tomatoes to come in. Be well, everybody. I wish you well. Take good care, and I will see you back here in the Sugar Freedom guest bedroom. Bye-bye.